One speech, one dream, and a movement that changed the world forever. Martin Luther King Jr., The Dream That Shaped History, August 18, 1963. August 18, 1963, Washington, D.C. A hot summer day and the streets were alive with a mix of excitement, tension, and hope. More than 250,000 people gathered at the Lincoln Memorial. Black, white, young, old, people traveled from every corner of the country, many risking their lives just to be part of history. Among them were workers from factories, students from colleges, families who had never seen a protest, and veterans of earlier civil rights battles. They came not only to witness a speech, but to demand that America honor its promises of equality. At the center of it all was Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., a Baptist preacher from Atlanta, Georgia. By 1963, King was already a well-known leader of the civil rights movement. He had inspired millions, led marches, endured beatings, arrests, and death threats. Yet he remained steadfast in his belief in nonviolent protest and the power of words. America in the early 1960s was a nation divided. Segregation laws in the South barred African Americans from voting, attending certain schools, or even sitting in certain areas on buses. Discrimination and systemic racism were entrenched in everyday life. Yet, change was brewing. The Montgomery bus boycott of 1955-56, sparked by Rosa Parks, showed the world that peaceful resistance could force a city to change its laws. King, as a young pastor, had been thrust into national attention. He preached patience, faith, and moral courage, and he proved that ordinary people could demand extraordinary change. By 1963, the civil rights movement had grown into a nationwide force. The Freedom Rides, sit-ins at segregated lunch counters, and protests across Birmingham, Alabama, had made headlines. But there was one problem. Despite these efforts, the country's laws still lagged behind its ideals. African Americans were still denied basic rights, and violence against protesters continued. The March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom was designed to unite voices from across the nation. It was not just a march, it was a statement. Organizers meticulously planned speeches, songs, and logistics. They wanted the world to see the moral power of the civil rights movement. Among the participants were ordinary people with extraordinary courage. There was Ella, a grandmother from Georgia, who had walked miles with her grandchildren, fearing nothing but injustice. There was James, a young student from Chicago who had never been to Washington before but had already been beaten during a protest in Alabama. And there were countless others, whose names history may not record, but whose presence amplified King's message. When King stepped onto the Lincoln Memorial steps, he did so with calm and confidence. Behind him, the statue of Abraham Lincoln stood as a reminder of promises unfulfilled. In front of him, the crowd stretched for miles, a living, breathing testament to the movement's momentum. He began with his prepared notes, speaking of the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, and the bad check that America had written to its black citizens, a check marked insufficient funds. But then, something remarkable happened. Mahalia Jackson, the gospel singer standing nearby, urged him, "Tell them about the dream, Martin." And King did. "I have a dream." He spoke of a world where children of all colors could walk hand in hand, where justice would flow like a mighty river, and freedom would ring from every corner of the nation. The crowd erupted. People wept, shouted, and sang. The dream was no longer just King's. It belonged to everyone who heard it, everyone who longed for equality. Ella, the grandmother from Georgia, recalled holding her granddaughter's hand and thinking, "Maybe she will live in a world I never could." James, the student, remembered the fear he felt at checkpoints on the way to Washington, but that fear vanished when King spoke. Others in the crowd remembered people fainting from the heat, yet refusing to leave. They held banners saying, "Freedom now, and we shall overcome." The march was not just symbolic, it was a living demonstration of courage and unity. The speech made headlines worldwide. Newspapers called it a turning point in American history. Television broadcasts brought King's voice into millions of homes, many for the first time. But not everyone welcomed the message. Segregationists mocked it. Politicians dismissed it as idealistic. The FBI, already suspicious of King, intensified surveillance and tried to discredit him. Yet the speech could not be silenced. It had tapped into something greater than politics. It was a moral force, a voice of conscience. Within a year, the momentum helped push through the Civil Rights Act of 1964, outlawing segregation in public places. And in 1965, the Voting Rights Act secured voting rights for African Americans. To fully understand the power of that speech, we must remember King's journey. In Montgomery, he led a bus boycott that lasted 381 days, enduring harassment, threats, and attacks. In Birmingham, he wrote his famous Letter from a Birmingham Jail, defending nonviolent protest and appealing to morality over law. These experiences shaped his voice, giving weight and authenticity to every word he spoke on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial. Even after his assassination in 1968, King's dream continued to echo around the world. His words inspired movements in South Africa, India, and beyond. They continue to inspire protests, debates, and classrooms. I Have a Dream reminds us that equality is not just a goal. It is a responsibility, a call to action for every generation. August 18, 1963, was not just a date. It was a turning point, a reminder that courage, hope, and words spoken with conviction can change the course of history. If King's story inspired you, don't forget to like this video, share it with others, and subscribe to Echoes of Today. Every day carries moments that shaped history, and every voice can carry change.